Chronorium Excerpt 349561223. The Summoning Key is one of the oldest artifacts in all creation. It was used by the first one to mix all the dimensions with life, giving each one its unique balance. Under certain circumstances, it has the ability to form bridges between dimensions, allowing the transfer of life forces back and forth. It resides in the 63rd dimension of creation. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to add some information to the Chronorium here. The Summoning Key was crafted specifically by the Keepers, and it allows the Keepers to manipulate the ether. It gives them control over reality itself, and they used that power right at the start of the Agartha storyline to create Agartha itself. The key is a cornerstone for the Keepers in terms of their technological efforts. Indeed, the first transference device that they create gives them the ability to master travel between dimensions, but it only happens once they've made the key. We were first really introduced to the Summoning Key at the start of Black Ops 3. At the beginning of Richtofan's journey, that's Richtofan's journey begins if you're looking for a timeline entry, Maxis tells Richtofen the plan to secure the Chronorium and locate the Summoning Key. He drafts this plan because of a conversation he has with a mystery figure. I quote, "Reality or dream? It is becoming harder and harder to tell. He came to me again last night while I was on my nightly walk through the countryside. He told me about the location of a book called the Chronorium. Said that Richtofen needs to acquire it if we are ever going to set things right. The book contains the location of a device called the Summoning Key. I will contact Richtofen in the morning." So Maxis gets this idea from his buddy, and then he passes on that information to Richtofen, who goes on the quest that we saw in Black Ops 3. Now, I asked Jason during my lightning round with him around the time of Zetsubo no Shima if we had seen the full power of the Summoning Key. Here's his response. Have we seen the full power of the Summoning Key?
No.
Will we see the full power of the Summoning Key?
Pass.
Ho ho ho! Will Dr. Monty's hidden agenda... Clearly, that man is unwilling to really answer any questions that we'll ask him about the key. And it doesn't really surprise me. This thing is meant to be the most powerful artifact in not just this, but any universe, and as such, you'd expect it to be treated with a bit of reverence from the guy that's actually making the story up. Well, Craig, you're doing it too. I'll give you credit there. Now, the question that I would like to pose today, based on a finding from the Blood of the Dead end cutscene, is what happens when you take the most powerful artifact in this or any universe, and you then add in time travel, whereby there could be another Summoning Key at a different moment in its history, and there would therefore be two Summoning Keys, potentially, in the same place, just from different parts of the key's history, and different omniverses, potentially. We'll start things off by being specific about what the hell I'm talking about. If you watch the Blood of the Dead end cutscene, some very important events happen in a very short period of time. I'm going to play you a clip from the ending now. As you can see, Great War Richtofen, having stepped out of his cryochamber, walks through the battlefield, holds his fire gem aloft, and cleanses all the bodies on the island of their souls, releasing them and freeing them.
Listen to how the spirits sing. They are free of this realm.
Ain't that swell? Does that mean we win?
I would be greatly relieved if that were so. I am in no hurry to ensnare my mortal soul.
That will not be necessary, Nikolai. The future has changed.
The Chronorium?
Read it. learn of your true calling. You must keep your soul. It will be needed to defeat Dr. Monty.
Who?
Afterwards, he walks up to the Black Ops 3 cycle Richtofen inside the Dark Mechanism and basically says that he doesn't give a damn about how he's feeling right now because he's got bigger fish to fry.
I honestly thought you were going to let me bleed to death. It was so sad. The cycle is broken, Herr Doctor.
He does two key things at this point. He unclips the blood vials from Richtofen's kind of sash, I don't know what the word would be, belt across his chest, and he also reaches down and takes the summoning key from that Richtofen.
But I'm not. No. No, you can help me. You're a doctor. Wait.
He walks away with key in hand. Black Ops 3 Richtofen then does a little bit of talking about how he's so sad, and it's all very emotional. When the scene switches back to the other characters, we see something really rather strange. First of all, the 4 portals through which the characters leave the island have already opened. They are already there. Nikolai is standing with the Chronorium, looking like he's as pensive as ever. And Richtofen, from the Great War, is walking with summoning key still in hand. But there's another summoning key floating in the air. Now, as soon as the blood cutscene was found and unlocked for the first time, I started receiving messages about this because people could not fathom why there would be 2 summoning keys. It's hard enough keeping track of the one of them when it bounces around from the keepers to the reporter to the keepers again, kind of, after it's gone to the characters from Morgue City and then to Richtofen and now here. It's a bit of a whirlwind, and now we've got 2 in the cutscene. What the hell is going on? So, that's what I basically want to talk about for the rest of the video. I want to start off by saying, it's a visual glitch. I know there will be people here that are simply interested in saying, no, it's actually just a glitch. It's not there. Bye. But to those people, I say, you're not going to get anywhere in your exploration of the theory if you're too narrow-minded about it. You need to be able to think outside the box a bit to push the boundaries so that when you get into a scenario where there really are 2 summoning keys, which could be happening here, it could be, this could be intentional. If you've done that thinking and you've thought about pushing the boundaries and pushing the box a little bit in the past, you'll be better equipped to understand the future. And so today, while I'm fully ready to accept that this is a visual glitch and it's something that I will ask Jason about, just like I do every time there's a scenario with empty blood vials in cutscenes and those being visual glitches, he generally gives me a pretty clear answer about whether or not those blood vials are filled, and I suspect here he'll give me a pretty clear answer about whether or not there is indeed a second key in the cutscene. But regardless, I want to talk about the prospect that there is, and what that could mean for the zombie storyline in general. The very first idea that I think a lot of you might be having right now that I want to dispel is that this second key is opening the portals, and the other key is just going to be another key that he's keeping in his back pocket. I want to be clear that neither key, regardless of if there's 1 or 2, the key here is not responsible for these portals, okay? It's a topic for another video. It's a lot of content that I don't want to get into at this exact moment in time, but it's not the key that's transporting them out right now. Or at least, it's not just the key. The key might be used as a mediator for what they're doing, but it's certainly not the primary reason that they are able to leave. Okay, moving on, I'll cover that more in future videos. I started this video off by saying that the summoning key was a very powerful artifact, right? I think that's something that we can all agree on. The interesting thing is that in the key's history, it is at different levels of power, or at least you could argue that for the following reason. When we play through the events of Shadows of Evil, we play as Nero, Jackie V, Floyd, and Jessica. And at the end of that Easter egg, their actions cause the Shadow Man to become trapped inside the key. Now, the Shadow Man being trapped in there is a really key point, not only for the Black Ops 3 storyline, but also for the Black Ops 4 storyline. However, it's key, no pun intended, for separate reasons. In Black Ops 3, the trapped Shadow Man first of all visits Richtofon's innocent soul when he collects it because the key is with him, and that's a really interesting point that we haven't really explored very much in the story so far. And then ultimately, the Shadow Man ends up being unleashed by a foolish Maxis, and that kind of kicks off the events of Revelations. Maxis' downfall is the Shadow Man rising. So, one of the keys here, if it's just come from Zetsubou Richtofen, should have the Shadow Man safely inside, plotting his escape fairly soon in a few maps' time. However, if there's a second key, the only place it really makes sense for it to have come from would be Great War Richtofen. Now, we know that in Revelations, the key doesn't experience the same fate that the crew do. We see the key do this weird process thing at the end of that Revelations ending, and it then pretty much blasts off into the sun. Now, that sun then gets the suck and disappears from existence, seemingly. But because our characters are still alive in the Great War, there has to be something going on, and so that suck is probably not as effective as Monty maybe thought it was. In fact, we see the key floating in space, seemingly, in one of the story trailers just around the time of Chronicles as well. Samantha is gazing up out of the window in the basement of the house. Why there's a window there, I don't really know. And out of that window, she sees the key. Well, sort of. It's a lot of metaphor and imagery, but she's looking out of the window, and the thing she is shown to be looking at is a shot of the key in outer space. Very Wheatley-esque. So the key is not done for at the end of Revelations. It clearly is not just wiped from history or anything along those lines, because the Primus crew certainly aren't either. And similarly, the fact that we are now jumping into Blood of the Dead midway through that loop does not mean that Revelations doesn't happen. It is incorrect to say that because we're breaking the cycle now, the previous parts of the cycle didn't happen. That is straight up wrong. The reason for it being that we need Great War Richtofen to exist. And he's only going to exist, assuming that he didn't exist initially, at least, in some kind of weird predestination issue. He's only going to be there if he's teleported back in time by Monty in Revelations. It's a place they've never been for a reason. And if they've never been there, that would require them in their first loop to have actually not been there. So, a little bit of rambling later, the point that I'm trying to make here is that we have the Revelations Richtofen going back in time and the key going elsewhere. We now have our Black Ops 3 loop Richtofen with his key, and that's all accounted for. But this Great War one, who comes out at the end, could, in theory, have his own key. He could have gone on a quest with the Great War crew and gone through some chain of events to secure the key from outer space or from some other position in time or space, and kept it with him in cryostasis while he waited for Richtofen's other plan in Alcatraz to roll through its series of tragic events. Now, if this did indeed happen, and it could have done, there's no real hard and fast reason why it couldn't have. It might not be necessarily likely, because again, could just be a visual glitch, and probably is, but if it happened in this way, we need to ask ourselves the following question. If someone is holding the summoning key, and they then travel back in time, and the summoning key is doing something else at that point in history, what happens to their key? Does it disappear? Does the key split in half? Does one become ineffective while the other becomes the true key? Are they simply not able to travel in time in that way? Is the key a fixed anchor in time? Is it one of the things that, as mentioned in the Chronorium, is not fixed apart from when it is fixed, and it is fixed in the cases of the key being involved? We're at a point in the zombie storyline right now where we just don't have the answers to this question, and so we can only really speculate. I suspect seeing as Richtofen had to specifically go to a certain dimension at a certain time that he read in the Chronorium of all books. The Chronorium is a pretty lengthy tome, right? And for him to have to source the location from there, he couldn't just Google map this bad boy, and then to go there at the exact right moment in time and snatch it from the arm of that keeper suggests to me that there's only one of these things in existence. But now that we have this time travel happening, and we have the reference frame of that time travel changing as we go, it means that we could end up in a legitimate scenario where there are two keys being used against one another potentially in a single battle, a single fight, a single plight to try and save or end the universe, depending on which side you stand on. Similarly, another important point to note is that if this post-Great War key is really there, it may not contain the Shadow Man. And so, in continuation of the point I just made about some kind of key versus anti-key battle, it would not surprise me at all if, amongst the themes of that fight, that war, we ended up seeing the Shadow Man in one battling against the purified innocent key in the other. I can imagine it now. You have one scenario where you've got Dempsey and Takeo and Shadow Man in one key, and then in the other key, for all we know, we could suck up the souls of the innocent kids in the house and use their innocent power against, yes, our friends, but also the Shadow Man threat rising up from the other side of the aisle, so to speak. I think that it's a really interesting thought experiment to try and kind of get your imagination flowing about how exactly that sort of thing could play out. Now, I'd like to take you back to what Jason said about the summoning key itself. Have we seen its full potential?
No.
Will we see its full potential? He will not answer it. And yes, that was recorded during Black Ops 3, and it was somewhat early in the Black Ops 3 canon, but it's a good indication that Jason has plans for this thing that he's not willing to pin down and nail down into one specific place, and rather, he'd be much happier leaving it as an open question. We don't know just how powerful this thing is, and as such, I'm really excited to see how Treyarch decides to change the course of history and change our interpretation of how the key works. Now that we've got, at this point, about 15 different Richtophens, we've got multiple iterations of not only the characters Takeo, Nikolai, Richtofen, and Dempsey, but also multiple versions of Primus, and multiple Ultimisses, and all sorts of things like that. There's more than just R4s that we've had named now, and as such, there may be more keys as well. That's the point I'd like to end you on for today. I'm trying to pump out a bunch of story videos right now, and so if you'd like more content like this, all you need to do is subscribe to my YouTube channel and ring the bell to turn on notifications. I've got some extremely juicy stuff coming in the next few days that you do not want to miss. Thanks for watching. I have been MrRoflWaffles, and I'll see you very soon in more Black Ops 4 Zombies videos. Bye for now.